Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to Monday Kick the Pants. Angela Fallon here, bringing you a gentle push to help you level up in your life and fill you with a dose of Monday motivation and provide tips to accelerate your success in your life and in your career. It's always good to be with you all on Monday. It's great to be with you guys here virtually for, oh my gosh, a couple of years now. We've been doing this. And I always, it's funny to think about like how long I've been doing this. I think I've been doing this since 2021, in the beginning of 2021. Um, has it really been that long? Has it really been? I need to go double check that. Has it really been 3 years almost? Whew, that's crazy. Anyways, welcome all on Monday. Normally we talk about ways to improve um, your career, things in your life. I give you guys tips on things, but today I want to talk about a book I've been reading recently. So I started reading a book called The Gap and the Gain, and it's written by the same two authors of the book that I'm going to tell you about today. The book I'm reading right now, though, is 10x is easier than 2x, and it's written by Dan Sullivan, who is the co-founder of a coaching program out of Canada, and I believe it's called Success Coaching. He and his wife Babs have had this company since 1988, and he co-wrote a book with Dr. Ben Hardy, who has a background in psychology, and they make an interesting partnership, I would say. And I've listened to both of their books, Gap and the Gain, and now 10x is easier than 2x. And I'm fascinated by both of them. And so I really want to start by sharing with you 10x is easier than 2x. And then next week, I'll probably talk about the Gap and the Gain because again, am fascinated by both of them. They talk a lot about an 80-20 rule, which I mean, I talk about 80-20 quite a bit. A lot of things that they teach in these books, I teach similarly, but this book I want to talk about today just fascinates me on that it's easier to 10x something in your life than to 2x something in your life. And it goes back to, like I said, the 80-20 rule where, 80% of your income is probably coming from 20% of the things that you do. 80% of your income probably comes from 20% of your clients. So you probably should be focusing on that 20%, right? It's no different whenever you make a leap in your success. Whenever you go back and look at how you may have made like huge leaps throughout your life, and I've kind of gone back and looked back too, and that's where Gap and Gain kind of comes in, where you measure yourself backwards as opposed to measuring yourself forward like we tend to do, with what am I going to get done this year, what am I going to get done this quarter, things like that. But I'm kind of digressing here. It's interesting to me whenever this book, and I highly recommend you go listen to it or watch it. You guys know I am like an Audible junkie, and so that's why I can usually read a book or two in a week, and sometimes I'll go back and read them multiple times to just kind of pick something up again or kind of ingrain it. But this book right now, 10x is easier than 2x, fascinates me because I've looked back in my career on how I have 10x certain things. And whenever I look at it, there's just a couple of examples that come to my head, like the top of my head is, for instance, when I went from being like a really good individual contributor to a team leader, and going from that initial, how do I be a really good individual contributor to how do I lead a team of multiple people. That was definitely a jump in 10x for myself, because I couldn't rely on myself anymore. And I had to learn how to run a team, use everybody on the team, and focus on the things that mattered most with the team and put people in the right place. And it's exactly what this book talks about, how when you really go from like a jump in income, a jump in capability, usually, it takes a big jump. It's not an incremental thing. And that's what I love that they talk about. You have to look at the 80-20. And by that, they mean Don't focus on the 80% of things that don't benefit you from a capability perspective, a funding perspective, a personal development perspective. You have to focus on the 20% of things that really do push you further into that next, I would say, shell of you, that next version of you. Me going from an individual contributor into a team leader was a big step for me. And I don't mean it was big like it scared me or it was big because, I made a whole bunch of money more. I didn't. None of those things were quite true. It changed me as a person. And I can tell you that it was a time where I figured out that I had to rely on the team. There was enough work for my team of 8 plus myself to cover that I couldn't just rely on myself. I couldn't do the work of 8 people. A lot of times this happens again when you go from a leader to a leader of leaders. And I've seen that as well. When I went from leading myself to leading a group of leaders, especially when I was thrown into an acting role for my director. This was years ago. I had to learn how to lead a little differently to be a leader of leaders. It's a different thing. And you have to realize that you can't keep doing more of what you're doing to be a better leader. I couldn't do everybody's work on that team of 8 and the team be successful. I had to figure out who could do what, put them in the right place, and empower them to do their jobs. Still check in on them and hold them accountable, and provide correction as needed, obviously in a loving way, in a caring way, in a supportive way as a leader. But it's another change whenever you realize that when you get to like an executive level, you can no longer, and I should probably say this is really hard for folks who are really strong in like a technical route and want to know deep, what the technical issues are, what the technical successes are, things like that. It's really hard for leaders to move into an executive role and let go of the small technical details. That is a 10x jump. It's not a 2x jump. And the difference you can tell also with a 10x jump and a 2x jump. What I love about this book is they say that 10x is easier than 2x because you really have to niche down on what are the 20% of the things you're going to focus on, and you have to let everything else go. Whether you delegate it or you take it out of your business or whatever, but you have to figure out what that 20% is and focus on that, or the whole thing fails. Because you cannot 10x or even 2x. Think about that. If you're already doing something as a leader or as an individual contributor, and then you're now responsible for the work of 2 people or 8 people, can you really create 8 clones of yourself to cover it all and to understand all of the details of all of the work that's supposed to be on that team? No. And then when you become an executive in an executive role, you have to lean on your leaders to do that same process below you. You can't be responsible to the details at the 10th level for all of your leaders and then all of their teams below them. You as a person cannot do that. This is why many people, honestly, don't want to turn into executives or turn into leaders. They don't want to take on those roles because that's the expectation they believe is required, is to take on 100% of all of those roles. And that's just not realistic. It's just not realistic. And that's what I love about this book. I still work with some leaders that have that expectation of you have to know everything about your program. Everything. You have to know the most about your program than anybody else. I don't necessarily agree with that. You may have a big, like when you become a leader or an executive of a program, you may have a breadth of what's going on in your program. There's no way you know all of the details fleshed out all the way down. You need to know the 20% that matters to you, that you need to be armed with whenever you're meeting with your management and your customers than anything else. You don't need to know the other things. There's a lot of details that are irrelevant and are a waste of space in your brain. That's a fact. But that's one of my favorite things about this book is that it honestly, it completely validates the way that I have felt for a while about how I am as a leader and how I get challenged from, I would say, some different personalities in my industry and in some other places that think that you have to know every detail of everything all the time or you're not doing your job. I do not agree with that. So, this is one of the things I love about this book, but it talks about a lot of ways on how you 10x, and whether it's, you know, in your personal development, in your income, or, your capability, whatever, maybe your company's capability, taking a 10x forward, how it's a lot easier than 2x, because with 2x, you kind of keep doing the things you're doing, but you surge to do 2x. And then you really keep hanging along all of those things that you really shouldn't be paying attention to, and not focusing on the things that are really important. When you're trying to 10x a capability, your income, whatever, your productivity, you really have to just focus on the 20% that really makes sense. You have to. And you got to let go of the other things, whether you delegate it and pay somebody else to do it, whatever. You have to really focus on those 20% that create 80% of the improvement. You have to focus on that. And you really do get to 10x sooner than you get the 2x, because the 2x you still keep dragging along the baggage. So that's the gist of part of the book. There's plenty of other amazing little goodies in this book, and I really recommend you go watch it. Go listen to it. You guys know I listen to most books, and again, multiple times usually. I think the actual book is probably a good investment too, like the paperback book. Highly recommend it. I really like these two authors. This is the second book that I've read of theirs, and I probably will read a couple others. They've written 3 together, I think, already, and maybe 3 to 5. I forget. Anyways, highly recommend it. Dan Sullivan and Dr. Ben Hardy. Highly recommend. 10x is easier than 2x. And next week, I will talk about The Gap and the Gain. Again, another book that I really love the message of it, and we'll talk more about that next week. All right. I hope this is helpful for you all. I hope this excites you about this book. I'm really enjoying it. Really funny. As I was messaging a girlfriend yesterday, I'm like, I'm reading this book called this. And she's like, oh my God, I'm reading that right now too. And it's so funny because she and I are kind of like on the same journey together. But hope you guys are having a great Monday. I hope you're having a great week. As you can tell, I'm a little more awake this week than last week, suffering from jet lag. We still have some issues here in the house. My husband's still having a rough time. It's been a while since we've gone to the Pacific and back, but hope you guys have a great day. I hope this was of value to you. If you have any questions, please feel free to question below. I'm happy to answer what I know from the message from this book so far. And if you want, you can go look at Audible. You can look it up on Amazon, probably Barnes and Nobles, and lots of other places. So go out there and check it out. I hope you guys have a great week and a happy Monday.